Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. Today I will demonstrate how to make a very rich and decadent 3-layer chocolate cheesecake. This is a perfect treat for Valentine's Day, or actually any time that you have a craving for a tasty treat that is also actually quite good for you. This is a New York style cheesecake that has a dense cake-like texture and a velvety melt-in-your-mouth feel. These are the 3 layers of the cheesecake. First, I begin with my keto Oreo cookie crust, next the chocolate cheesecake, and all topped up with a dark chocolate ganache. And the layers complement each other perfectly. As always, while I'm making the cake, I will provide explanations and suggestions on how best to store as well as how to freeze this cake. So that you can decide on the correct size of your serving, here are the macros. The macronutrient ratio for the 3-layer chocolate cheesecake is 4:1, with 8.9 grams of total carbs, 3.8 grams of soluble fiber, 0.1 gram of insoluble fiber, resulting in 5 grams of net carbs per serving. The first step in making the chocolate cheesecake is to make the Oreo cookie crust. I found that the best kind of crust for this particular cheesecake is to use a crumble cookie crust, which makes it very easy to cut and serve. So the first thing I do, I'm going to make a cookie dough as per my recipe, and then I roll the dough out on a parchment-lined cookie sheet and bake it as directed. When my giant cookie slab is baked, I take it out of the oven and I let it cool completely. I take a big chunk of the cookie and I crumble it between my fingers. I would suggest that you make the cookie crumbs manually, otherwise you may find your crumbs are too fine and not coarse enough. Although one full batch of my Oreo cookie pie crust or Oreo cookie recipe is more than I need for one pie crust such as this, I make the entire batch, then I break up the rest of it and store it in a freezer-safe container, which I label. In this way I'll have some Oreo cookie crumbs available for other recipes, such as my Oreo cheesecake or some of the other ones. Please check out the end links for more suggestions of how you can use the Oreo cookie crumbs. After I've crumbled my Oreo crust into a mixing bowl and weighed out the correct quantity, I poured in the melted unsalted butter, tossed everything to fold so that all the crumbs are nice and moist. Before I forget to mention, you should line the bottom and the sides of your 8 or 9 inch or 20 to 22 centimeter springform pan with parchment. And because I'll be putting this springform pan into a water bath, I'm also going to create a seal with a double layer of aluminum foil. This is important because you don't want water to get through and seep through the bottom of the springform pan, because the water could ruin your Oreo crumb crust. So make a good tight seal. Then just pour all the crumbs into your springform pan and, using the bottom of a measuring cup, gently press the crust. The harder you press down, the more the crumbs will condense and become denser and harder. But although I want the crust to be nice and solid, but still be light enough that I can cut through easily with a fork. One other thing I'd like to mention is, in order that my crust does not crumble at the edge of the perimeter, I also take the back of a spoon and press down to firm up where the outside of the cheesecake is going to be. To avoid my chocolate from scorching, I either chop it or grate it. This prevents it from scorching, and also it helps to melt the chocolate faster. My next step will be to use a bain-marie or double boiler and melt my chocolate. A bain-marie is where you place a small pot with about 1 inch or 2 centimeters of water over a medium heat and bring the water to a gentle boil, and then you place a well-fitting pot or bowl on top of that. Cook slowly until almost all the chocolate has melted, and then remove the bowl from the stovetop and stir until the rest of the chocolate has melted. I'll be using the chocolate a little bit later, so set it aside to cool. Now it's time to make the central layer of my New York style chocolate cheesecake. First, to a large mixing bowl, or stand mixer in my case, I add the room temperature cream cheese and whisk it with a paddle attachment to further cream it. Next, as I continue blending and also add the sweetener, I'm using my Lakanto monk fruit-based sweetener today. Next, I add the dry powdered coffee, which will enhance a bit of the chocolate taste. Now it's time to add the room temperature smooth or fine ricotta and the heavy cream and a good quality pure vanilla. Everything likes to stick to the sides of my pan, so don't forget to stop and scrape down the cheese from the sides of your bowl and your paddle. Then whisk to combine all the ingredients again. And while continuing to whisk slowly, I'm going to drizzle the melted room temperature chocolate into the cheese mixture. Next, add the lightly whisked room temperature eggs and slowly continue whisking until they're well combined. If at this point you notice that your mixture is looking a little bit too thick and clumpy, you can add a bit of extra cream or warm water. This is in order to get a nicer batter consistency. But only add a little bit of liquid at a time. You don't want a runny batter. As you can see, the consistency should be thick and creamy, like this. Next, pour the cheesecake mixture into your prepared springform pan. Then using your offset spatula, smooth the surface of the cheesecake. I'm also going to place the springform pan into the center of my roasting pot lid. Or if you don't have a lid like mine, you can use any large shallow pan. Pour in the boiling water into the roasting pan, but make sure that the water is below the aluminum foil line. Otherwise, your crust will get wet and soggy. If you're wondering, this water bath will help your oven to stay moist and prevent the top of the New York style cheesecake from cracking. When everything is prepped, place your assembly into the middle position of your preheated 320 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius oven and bake for 20 minutes. Then, without opening the door, really important, don't open the door, reduce the temperature to 300 Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius and bake for 30 more minutes. When your timer goes off, turn off the heat, prop the door open slightly, and let the cheesecake cool slowly in the oven for about 30 minutes to an hour. Then take everything out of the oven and lift your springform pan out of the water bath. Remove the aluminum foil and let your cheesecake cool to room temperature. I like to place a tea towel or paper towel over my cheesecake, not cling wrap, because that keeps the moisture in too much, before refrigerating overnight. This longer resting time in the refrigerator will create a really amazing smooth texture as well as intensify the chocolate taste. And the last step is to make the chocolate ganache. To make the ganache, you simply place the chopped or grated chocolate into a bowl, add the instant coffee powder and the heavy whipping cream, and place the bowl over the double boiler or bain-marie as I explained earlier, and just stir while the chocolate is melting. When the chocolate is melted, turn off the heat and add your butter, then stir well until the butter is well combined. Set this ganache aside until it has cooled to room temperature. The last part is very simple. Pour the cool ganache over the chocolate cheesecake, which is still in the springform pan, and return the cheesecake to the refrigerator to allow the chocolate ganache to set and get nice and hard. It'll only take about 20 minutes. To serve, remove the cheesecake from the springform pan and carefully peel off the parchment from both the sides and the bottom, and then transfer it onto a serving platter. You can serve the cake as is with a nice smooth chocolate surface, but on special occasions, especially days like Valentine's Day or Christmas, I like to add a garnish. Today I'm going to keep things very simple, so I'm going to use a few fresh raspberries, which I have placed on top of red carnation petals. But this is your cake, so garnish it as you like. Some of the times I just make chocolate whipped cream and pipe it out around the perimeter. If you make this cake, please send me a picture and tag me on your Instagram. I'd love to see your creations. So finally, as I hinted earlier, you can freeze this cheesecake. To do so, you simply cut the rest of your cheesecake into individual servings, separate each serving or slice between parchment, and store in a freezer-safe container. I find that freezing the extra cheesecake really helps me with portion control, because if I leave my cheesecake in the refrigerator, I know I'll have 1 or 2 extra pieces, and if I don't control how many slices I have, I will definitely exceed my macros for the day, which is never a good idea. And the other benefit of freezing is I do like having a treat once in a while. So when I have a craving, I can take one of the frozen slices and let it thaw on my counter. I have found that the texture and taste of these frozen slices, when thawed, is just like the original cake. I hope that you'll find this recipe useful and tasty. If you do like my recipes, please support my channel by subscribing and turning on your notification bell. Otherwise, YouTube won't alert you when I post my next video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video, and please come back when I post my next one. In the meanwhile, have a wonderful day. For your convenience, I'll provide a link for each of the mentioned videos as well as for the printable recipe for this 3-layer chocolate cheesecake. All the links will be in the description below.